In this bulletin, facts and lies over the toxins in your printer cartridges. Hello, I'm David Gibbons and thanks for joining me. There's a lot of tension in the printed consumables aftermarket over the levels of toxicity in printer cartridges. Action has already been undertaken in the European Union to stop the use of potentially dangerous fire retardant chemicals that pollute our environment. And similar action is being considered in the United States and other countries as well. The use of fire retardants are important and they're used in a wide range of products that we use every day to protect us from being injured. And the printer supplies aftermarket has become particularly vocal on the subject. The remanufacturing sector in particular wants to retain market share being taken by the new build compatibles coming from China. So some remanufacturers claim new build compatibles use inferior plastics which contain harmful levels of deca BDE fire retardant chemicals. Now, many remanufacturers of new builds have scrambled to claim their products comply with current environment laws, and others are claiming that they have rectified the problem. So, just what is the truth when it comes to the toxicity of a printer cartridge sitting in a printer next to your work desk? Graham Galliford is a world-renowned chemist, researcher, author, publisher and consultant. He also holds degrees in physics and business from the University of Westminster in the UK and has worked in the field of toner-based printer technology since 1974. Over the last 18 years, Graham has focused on the industry in Japan, India and China. And he joins me live from California in the United States. Hello, Graham. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, David. Good to be here.
In your opinion, Graham, why has there been such recent interest in the use of flame retardant deca BDE chemicals in printer cartridges?
Well, I believe that the interest really has been generated by genuine environmental impact concerns and also by the opportunity presented to some for a possible opportunity to gain an advantage over competitors. In general, there is certainly great concern amongst the general public about the environment, quite naturally. Concern has been elevated really over emissions as well as pollution. European authorities really have led the way in concerns about the environmental impact and potential human impact of specific chemicals in common use. The responsible body in the EU, the European Chemicals Agency or ECHA, added the commonly used fire retardant chemical deca diphenyl ether, known as deca BDE, to its candidate list of persistent bioaccumulative and toxic chemicals, or PBTs, in 2014. Subsequently, the agency's recommendation has been written into European law, and other countries have followed the lead of the Europeans to some extent, although not as stringently. At this same time, the global market for printer supplies continues to be fierce as a battleground for share amongst OEMs, cartridge manufacturers, and new build cartridge manufacturers. During this particular time, there's been an analysis of new build cartridges flooding into Europe, particularly over recent years, and it's been intense, but it's largely been focused on patent infringement. However, more recently, a new front has opened up with the realization that plastic used for the plastic cartridge components in new build cartridges contains brominated flame retardants, and notably deca BDE. Since the trade press highlighted the content of deca BDE in toner cartridges in May 2018, there's been accentuated attention to the use of flame retardant in cartridges. This has been particularly by remanufacturers that are suffering from the growing popularity of clones and patent-free new builds. Their attention has been part of a campaign to deter consumers from buying less expensive, competitive products from Asia. The conjecture that has been spread by some players in the industry and influences that all Chinese or Asian new built cartridges are toxic, hazardous, or harmful is not true. It's not a true representation of the facts. It's certainly undesirable to perpetuate the use of these chemicals and chemicals such as deca-BDE that have been shown to be persistent environmental pollutants. If landfilled, toner cartridges present a comparatively small source of deca-BDE into the environment. Measures to dramatically reduce and possibly eliminate the use of such materials is possible and necessary. However, we have been living with deca-BDE and its cousins in our homes, furniture, beds, cars, offices, factories, aeroplanes, trains, and everywhere in our lives. The amount of these materials introduced into the environment from casings of toner cartridges is minuscule by comparison with these other sources. The products sold in jurisdictions need to comply with regulations in those regions is without question, but the tendency to panic because of competition-driven rhetoric should be resisted. Remanufacturers and influencers are looking to use these matters to create scandal and thereby try to help them win back lost market share.
So, Graham, in separating the facts from the fiction, what are the current findings related to deca-BDE flame retardants?
Well, that deca-BDE is a persistent organic pollutant is clear. It is ubiquitous and pervasive in our world. It's found in the highest concentration near recycling plants. It's even been found in the Arctic, far from any of the original source of such materials. Anyone viewing this video is at this very moment exposed to some article or other that contains deca-BDE or one of its congeners or one of its family of chemicals. This includes the chair on which you're sitting, the carpet on the floor around you, the computer keyboard you are touching, the soles of your shoes you are wearing, and the casing of the tablet or smartphone you might be using to view this video. We are, all of us, no matter where we live, exposed. However, nothing is definitely known about the health effects of deca-BDE in humans. The information that's developed on toxicity comes from animal studies. Deca-BDE is not known to cause cancer in humans. The United States Department of Health and Human Services has not classified deca-BDE as a carcinogen, and the Environmental Protection Agency has assigned Group D status to deca-BDE. That means they've classified it as not a human carcinogen. They have, however, stated that there's suggestive evidence that it may be a carcinogenic potential. Recently, studies by the Australian Government Department of Health have been that it exhibits a low acute oral skin and inhalation toxicity and very, very low skin absorption in animals. Deca-BDE, they say, is not a skin or eye irritant. It's not cytogenic. In other words, it has no effect on DNA. They say that repeated ingestion shows low systemic toxicity, even at a high level, and that a clear interpretation of the significance on human health has not been established. In Japan, the National Institute of Technology and Evaluation has stated that deca-BDE is of low concern in consumer products and poses a low risk. Under that agency, the NITE, the Chemical Management Center in Japan, has found even when large exposures of deca-BDE have been experienced, the risk is still very, very, very low. Deca-BDE itself is a solid material. It's stable. It has extremely low volatility. So there's no significant exposure to vapor in the ambient temperature. It has a melting point of 295 degrees Celsius. It has a boiling point of 425 degrees Celsius, way above the temperature of fuser systems in toner-based printers like laser printers. The maximum fuser roll surface temperature, now just the surface temperature of a roll in a laser printer, is about a maximum of 185 degrees Celsius. At this temperature, any deca BDE, no matter what concentration, is going to remain solid in the cartridge casing during the life of the cartridge. No vapor of the material will produce during that use. Deca BDE is not water soluble either. It has minimal likelihood of polluting groundwater as a result of landfilling. Public exposure to this material is actually dominated by indirect exposure from the environment rather than from articles. Inhalation or ingestion of deca BDE containing dust is the main cause of ingestion of this material. And this comes from articles used in the household, in vehicles, in the workplace. These are the major sources. Dust is the main vector by which deca BDE is distributed in the environment. This is because deca BDE is oleophilic. It likes fatty substances. It readily adheres to fatty or greasy materials. Gradual breakdown of plastic in household, automotive, or vehicular components and items in the office and workplace create dust containing the material, and the dust is carried by air currents in their distribution. The chemical BDE is certainly a persistent organic pollutant, but based on the current evidence, its effect on human health is not categorically known.
Graham, you have painted a vivid picture. These chemicals are all around us, and we're all impacted by what you call these brominated flame retardants in our daily lives. So what's the future for this? I mean, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, what has been highlighted in our industry, of course, is the content of this material in toner cartridges. Toner cartridges, even with a higher content of deca BDE, are not toxic. They're not hazardous. They're not harmful in use. Touching, using, or working with toner cartridges or using a laser printer is not dangerous to your health from the risk of exposure to deca BDE. A person's exposure risk is greater when sitting on their couch at home watching TV, using their smartphone or tablet, and even sleeping on their mattress at night in their bedroom, rather than from the personal laser printer that they might be using next to their desk in their office. This danger in the environment, of course, will persist for people in their homes, in their cars, in their offices, but not from toner cartridges themselves. Legislation, however restrictive, will not remove exposure to deca BDE or other brominated flame retardants now or in the future, in the medium or short term. The legislation currently in place in Europe and proposed to be in place in the United States will not actually ban the use of brominated flame retardants, but will restrict the concentration of these materials in plastic products. Indeed, more than this, there are exceptions to those restrictions in certain product categories. These that are notably those that affect the general public include the use in aircraft, the use in motor vehicles, and the use in some electronic equipment. In these product categories, there are no restrictions. Beyond this, brominated flame retardants have been in common use in all manner of products in the home, office, and the workplace for over 30 years now. And there is a substantial inventory of these items in the world that remain in service and will remain in service for years to come. It's just not feasible to dispose of all these items and try to replace them with new. Some experts believe that these legacy items now in place will be in our lives for 25 years or more in the future. The conundrum really is what to do with these items at end of life and safely dispose of them, mitigating any risk of persistent pollution. Recycling helps. Recycling helps prevent these materials from getting into the environment. However, the use of recycled plastic as feedstock for new items must without question be done so as to comply with legislation in the markets where items are sold. This is a challenging task. In the USA, there is new legislation proposed by the EPA that is not proposing to prohibit recycling of plastic articles from containing deca-BDE, so long as no new deca-BDE is added. The EPA say that they recognize the importance of recycling and the impact of recycling, as it helps to protect the environment by keeping valuable materials out of landfill. They also say that the US recycling industry is an important employer, employing 757,000 or more people in the American economy. They also say that it provides a tax income to the US government of $6.7 billion annually, which is no small amount of money. The EPA has said they do not plan to hamper recycling and believe that overly burdensome restrictions on recycling plastics containing deca-BDE will be impractical and time-consuming. A practical and economically prudent approach is needed to this issue in the manufacture, the use, and disposal of articles containing deca-BDE, along with mitigation of the risks to the environment and consequently to humans. This needs to be combined with the implementation of strategies to replace this flame retardant with other materials and or use other means to provide articles with low or non-flammability. The bottom line is, for the consumer, if there is a bottom line, it's don't panic. For industry, it's to make sure that they are in compliance with regulations. And for society, it's to move forward and positively improve the protections for our world.
Thanks, Graham Galliford, for joining me today.
Thanks, David, for the opportunity to talk to you about this very important subject.
And you can read more about deca-BDE and printer cartridges by going to the feature articles section on our RT website at rtmworld.com. And don't forget to grab the latest copy of our RT Imaging World magazine, published in English, Spanish, Chinese, Russian and Arabic. And for the latest news, features, blogs, and to get a free download of the magazines, you can also go to rtmworld.com. Thanks for keeping in touch. I'm David Gibbons.